Hi, I'm Sam, and it's good to see you, fam. Oh, no, Heimbach can keep his saying. Anyway, today we are looking at something a little bit special. It's a design that was the first design by Raymond Wilson. Well, the first published design, at least. If you've never looked into the wonderful world of synthesizer DIY, you may not be aware of the website Music from Outer Space. We've covered it numerous times in the past, including building his penultimate all-in-one synthesizer design, the SoundLab Ultimate, about 6 months ago or so, and covering the history of Raymond Wilson's synthesizer designs. The link to that video is below, and in that video we mention a synthesizer, which is his first synthesizer design, which was published a good 20 years before Music from Outer Space website was even a thing, and that is the Waveform Processing WP20 Mini Synth Sound Effects Synthesizer. After doing that video on the SoundLab Ultimate, which is pretty much a very largely evolved version of the WP20, Lorenzo BRG reached out about a synthesizer that was gathering dust in a box in the corner at their house. And that is this thing right here. Lorenzo was very kind enough to send this over. As he said, it was gathering dust in a box, and yeah, he thought it might be better suited being used and played at this Museum's Not Obsolete alongside the SoundLab Ultimate. So you've kind of got the penultimate design of the all-in-one synthesizer by Raymond Wilson and the first published design by Raymond Wilson. It's obviously not built by Raymond Wilson, this one. This has been built by Lorenzo in 2005. In fact, he posted it with a little letter, and we'll read some excerpts from it right now. Hi Sam, I'm very pleased to send you my humble creation for your awesome museum. It's the fabulous WP20 from Ray Wilson's Waveform Processing from before his Music from Outer Space series. The build quality is not really exceptional, in particular when it comes to how I managed to get the panel wiring done, which is pretty much a spaghetti-like mess of red and black wires. I'm sure it's a fine beast. It looks lovely from the outside. I thought I could have tried to get it better before sending out the unit to you, but I somehow wanted to preserve its original feel. It's now up to you to decide if you want to keep it this way or if it is to touch it up and make it a bit better. We're not going to touch it up and make it a bit better, because that will destroy its originality and its original design and intention and purpose, which is what you have done there, Lorenzo, sir. I thank you very kindly. The original panel wiring on Ray's website was meant to be used for slide switches, but I twisted it to be more suitable to toggle switches for ease of panel routing and mounting. So instead of making square cuts for the slide switches that look like that, he's gone for mini toggle switches, what I think they are much nicer anyway. The wooden box the synth has been built into is an Electro Harmonix Memory Man box from 2001 that I received from my wife as a birthday gift. I used to play guitar into a beautiful Italian indie post-rock band called the Juniper Band. The pedal was stolen from our rehearsal rooms a couple of years later, and the box was everything left from that present. The unit was built back in 2005, and you can check a few references online here. In fact, this is the Electro Music Forum post that Lorenzo put on this back in 2005. It's nearly 20 years old, and it's still got current information on the website about it whilst he was building it, which I think is absolutely fascinating. So Lorenzo, thank you very much. This will be going next to the SoundLab Ultimate for people to test and compare next to each other. But as you can see from the outside, Lorenzo's done an absolutely lovely job in building this synthesizer design and has kept to the electronic design pretty tightly. The panel is laid out slightly differently. I've printed out the original documentation for the WP20 Waveform Processing Unit. I'll just find the panel really quick. It's got everything from the design of the box, which Lorenzo of course didn't do because this was repurposed from an Electro Harmonix pedal box. Here we go. This is the original design of the panel. As you can see, it varies slightly, mainly in dimension and shape, but the layout is pretty much exactly the same. So the synthesizer is pretty simple. It's got a voltage controlled oscillator up here with a modulation input, the controls, not sure what that is, and volume. We've got a noise that's also got a volume. These are both, I presume, going into the voltage controlled filter, which is right here. You've got a switch for the resonance instead of a knob like usual, so you've got low resonance or high resonance. You've got a couple of other controls. You've got the attack and decay of the envelope generator. You can trigger it here, so you can use this box just on its own. You've got an LFO right here. There's no diode to show you the LFO rate, which is fair enough. You've got an on and off switch, which is down here. And you've got the voltage controlled amplifier, which you can adjust the sensitivity so you can sort of bypass it. You've got the output volume, and you can choose whether the VCA, voltage controlled amplifier, is controlled by the LFO or by the AD, the attack decay generator, the envelope generator, which is here. So in a more standard kind of synthesizer, because you can plug in control voltage and gate in. Presumably that's volt per octave, we'll find out soon. We'll plug those in. If it's on AD, you can just play it like a keyboard. We'll try that in a little bit. There are, however, a couple of challenges with wiring this in straight away to a power supply. We need to use batteries, and there's a couple of reasons why, and that is down to the design, and we'll look at the design really quickly. The WP20 sound effects synthesizer does just what its name implies. It creates sound synthetically by means of electronics. It comes very close to imitating many real sounds and can also create sounds that do not occur in real life. It performs this magic through the use of an oscillator, bandpass filter, oh, it's a bandpass filter, envelope generator, low frequency oscillator, amplifier, and a white noise source. The versatility of the WP20 comes from the fact that several of its circuits are voltage controlled. The frequency of the oscillator, for example, may be varied manually by turning one of the oscillator's control knobs out on the front panel. Tuning the knobs varies voltage in the oscillator circuit, thereby changing its frequency. Beautiful. It keeps on going on and on. The link to this is below. It describes all of the circuitry, how it is put together, all of the processes of building the panel, and then there's the circuits. I think these might be modifications. Nope, we've got a gate in, so you're able to send the gate in. They're all, the schematics are broken out into things. External strike switch. That would be the switch right here, the external strike. We've got external CV, control voltage. So that's these are modifications, sequencer and drum modifications to be adding to afterwards. You've got the components, the list of what you're going to need to make. As you know, the box for it, this is slightly different to that. So you don't need to follow the instructions exactly how it goes. This is the front image of the panel that is for the design. It's got a lovely late 1970s, early 1980s font right there. This was published in 1980, so that explains that. If you've ever been through the Music from Outer Space website, you'll notice that this is very similarly and interestingly laid out to all of the projects over there. I'm not sure whether this is going to be volt per octave on the oscillator. It does look very simple, but we can give it a go. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be a very musically tunable oscillator, but we can give it a try. The interesting thing is most of the circuit is powered by plus 9 volts and the rest of it goes to ground. However, you'll notice that in a second there is one aspect to this that complicates the whole thing and actually requires another voltage. So we've got plus 9 volts. We've got a 555 chip in the attack decay envelope generator. We've got a very simple low frequency oscillator, and this is when it gets complicated because the noise source, which is strangely enough the only thing that requires 18 volts, I'm possibly thinking that we might be able to modify this and bring it down to the same voltage as this, so it's easier for us to plug it into a power supply, because in order to run it at the museum, in order to not forget about changing batteries and stuff, it'll be better to just plug it into a power supply, like a wall-wart power supply, and plus 9 volts would be perfect for that. And we're going to see if we can sort of, maybe later in the video, kind of get that working. You may notice that this schematic is actually very similar to the schematic of the white noise in the super simple synth voice that we did a couple of weeks ago on the breadboard. The link to that video is also below, but this was running on 12 volts there. This is the power supply, and as you can see, it works in a unipolar manner. It's slightly different to other synthesizer power supplies. So there's two batteries. There's one 9-volt battery and another 9-volt battery. The plus of one 9-volt battery is wired into the minus. You add those two together, these two 9-volt batteries, it ends up being 18 volts. So between this, it will measure 18 volts. And then between just the first battery, it will measure 9 volts. So that's what this is doing. In other DIY battery-powered synthesizers of this kind of time and just after, it's actually wired slightly differently. You would have two batteries like this, but the center, where the two batteries connect together, would actually be classed as ground. And then this would be minus 9 volts and that would be plus 9 volts. But yeah, this is slightly different and we might be able to get away with just a 9-volt battery. We'll figure that out in a mo. This is before Raymond Wilson got obsessed by operational transconductance amplifiers and using these as the voltage control for a voltage control filter and a voltage controlled amplifier. And using the transconductance amplifiers is a very similar kind of method as the super simple synthesizer that we built a couple of weeks ago. This is prior to that, so using op amps in these circuits. But as you can see, they're still very simple designs. How that translates to the sound, I don't know yet. Let's see what it sounds like very soon. And then we get to the end of that. I also found the scan of the circuit board. This was available with the project, so you could print it out to scale and then get that etched on a circuit board yourself. Now I think that's what Lorenzo did in this synthesizer, but before we take this apart, let's go and make some sounds with this. First we need to put a couple of batteries in, and they go in here. Built in 2005 by Lorenzo Biaggi, aka LB, aka Ladis Labiro, aka Biro, Bologna, Italy. Okay, here we go. So we need to clamp them down into this, plonk them into there. Right, it's working. Right, let's go and see what sounds it makes. Right, let's get some sounds out of it. Actually, 1 second. Currently taking it over to Rosie Carr's and Johnny's because they're building a resonator speaker that's been inspired by Charlie Draper's Ondes Martinot. Ondes Martinot. These non-academic types really do ruffle my feathers. It's Ons Martineau, you idiot. That they saw this weekend. I figured we'll go and see how they're getting on and plug this in and let them have a go and see if it sounds pretty funky through this resonating speaker.
So let me get a nice long cable.
Currently with Rosie, and you've got a show coming up.
Yeah.
And where is the show again?
Actually, it's a secret location in Margate.
Secret location in Margate.
Email youtapeparty@gmail.com to find out.
You're building something for it, which is right here. May as well try and plug this machine that I'm doing a video on right now into it, and seeing if you can make some funky sounds with it. So if you plug it into the main output, we'll see what kind of sounds come out of it. And there's going to be a link to the progress with this, if there's going to be any progress video below. But anyway, that is the drone synth through a speaker. Anyway, let's go and get some other sounds through it now. Okay, we're back. Let's give it a go. So to start with, let's turn it on. And it's got a noise, and we're going to turn it up and send it through the bandpass filter first because it's hardwired there. So we've got the noise. You can turn up and down the resonance. It hasn't got a resonance knob. It's got a resonance switch. Let's control the filter via the envelope generator. Via the LFO now. Bring in the oscillator. It's got a triangle wave as well. Right, let's see what happens when we plug it into a sequencer. Now, having read the documentation on here, I haven't seen anywhere about it saying about it being voltage tracked, voltage per octave tracked, so it may not be musical. I'm doubting it's going to be musical, but it doesn't hurt to give it a go and see what happens. So the gate works. Now let's see if we can get some CV going into it. Yeah, it's not voltage per octave tracked, but that's fine. Get it going through an effects pedal. Let's try it now. It would be rude not to at least have a peek on the inside and see what's going on, shall we? Because looking through Lorenzo's forum post, he directly etched it from this. So with any luck, when we have a peek on the inside, we'll see something very similar to this. Oh, is it coming apart? Ooh! Oh, that's very nice. Lorenzo described it as a bit of a spaghettio, but it's actually pretty good. We can compare the two. You'll see there's an IC right there. That's that one. That bit there is that one. And this is obviously upside down reversed. So this one is over here because we're looking at the back. This is like that way round. This is the 1M resistor that goes to the noise, so it goes from 18 volts into the noise. I'm going to try and see if we can slightly modify this, but we're going to start by removing the 18 volt power, which is this one right here. It's been quite luckily labeled 18 volts on here. There's no noise. That's because we've disconnected it. In fact, if I plug this 18 volts back in on it, let's add a tiny modification to try and make this usable on just a single power supply, like a simple power supply, so we don't have to worry about changing the batteries all the time. So we're going to get this red wire, we're going to wire the 18 volt input, and we're going to wire that over to the 9 volt, solder it onto one of those. This one's the 9 volt one, so if we just plug this one in, potentially it'll just turn on. So now we've only got one battery plugged in because we haven't got the 18 volt one plugged in. Now we're going to try and wire in a power supply into this connector instead. Right, so I've wired in a plug input into it. We're going to pop it inside here as well. We're going to mess around with the voltages that go in here and just see if we can make the noise circuit work at 12 volts, because I know that circuit can work at 12 volts, but then also the rest of it, which I'm pretty confident it does. The only reason this is running at 9 volts is because of 9 volt batteries. It's friendly for having a portable synthesizer, but it's not friendly for having one on display at this museum's not obsolete. Right, we've got a 12 volt power supply here. Let's plug it in and see what happens, shall we? Yes, the noise works at 12 volts. And going to 12 volts, there's no real difference in the function of the synthesizer. It just means it's much more friendly to plugging it into a power supply. So if you have one of these and don't want to keep on plugging in two batteries, one for 9 volts and then wiring both of them together for 18 volts, then wire the noise circuit, the 18 volt input, into the 9 volt input. So wire them both together and then wire both of them to a 12 volt power supply. Simple as that. So yeah, now it's ready to take over to This Museum's Not Obsolete and put next to the SoundLab Ultimate. The WP20 being the first synthesizer design that was published by Raymond Wilson nearly 20 years before the Music from Outer Space website was even a thing. You can see some similarities between this and some of the simpler synthesizer voices of Music from Outer Space. For instance, the SoundLab and the weird sound generator. They do look quite similar to this. And some of the circuit designs still carry through to the Music from Outer Space ones, even though this was 20 years prior. Of course, it isn't the most advanced or musical synthesizer out there, but it's got its own thing and it is a piece of history regardless. Lorenzo did a great job of following the plans and putting this together and basically taking the essence of the WP20 and bringing it forwards into 2005. If you want to play this, you can do so at This Museum's Not Obsolete. Check the opening, the information and stuff like that below on the website. I've recorded a bunch of sounds with this and you can download those and use them on songs and stuff. That's available over on Patreon, which needless to say helps to support the videos, the projects and the museum that you can use this in. Anyway, until next time, I'm Look Mum No Computer. This is the WP20 and Rover.